can just like do a little introductions. I think I'm crazy. Okay, the first is the ability to build empathy. And I like to say trust, because if somebody doesn't trust you or like you, feel like you're a personable person, they're not going to buy from you. And a lot of people think, well, if I'm selling a great product or if I'm offering a great service, somebody's going to buy from me. No, typically the first reason they buy from you is because they like you and they trust you. And that's a big thing. It's a big thing with salespeople. Salespeople have a bad rap sometimes of not being very trustworthy. And that's not any salesperson I've ever met or any of my salespeople, and even in the market, they're always trustworthy. So that's a huge, huge quality that people need to be a great salesperson. The second one is the ability to listen and naturally be inquisitive. You have to listen to what clients are saying before you know what you can sell them. I mentioned a second ago that one of the leaders in our industry, we work with them every year. They're called Jim Doyle and Associates, and they come into our market twice a year. They train the salespeople, and then they also go out and talk to clients about how they can help them grow their business. There's a lot of listening that goes on in that first meeting because we're asking them all kinds of questions, and they're not just advertising questions. There's actually a rule that you can't talk about any advertising at least until you're 30 minutes into the session, because you don't want them to feel like you're there just to sell them something. If they ask us a question about, well, how much is it to advertise on WVVA, we actually say, we appreciate your eagerness to run with us and your questions, but we'd like to hold that, and we go back another week and we do that. We actually take a presentation back to them. So again, there's just a lot of listening that goes on in these sessions with them. They like to say that prescription without diagnosis is malpractice. A lot of medical people, when we call in, and they really appreciate that term, but it's the truth. You have to know what your business needs before you can offer them something. There's the days of going out and just selling somebody a package because you need to sell it and hit your goal is over. I mean, people, their money is so tight these days, and you have to really focus on what they need and sell it to them. That's going to be best beneficial for them. The third is the ability to put yourself in their shoes, and I kind of put that in the same realm as the empathy, because that's how I learned the definition of empathy, is being able to put yourself in someone else's shoes. And you really have to do that. You have to think about, if you were the business owner, what would you do? How would you run your business? How would you market your business? How would you want to spend your money? A lot of these business owners that we deal with every single day that we're trying to sell, they don't know anything about advertising. They don't know anything about marketing. So you have to be able to put yourself into their shoes and understand that. And not, salespeople get so eager to go out and sell something a lot of times. They have to kind of tone it back and calm down a little bit and make sure that they're hitting all those needs for that client. And also the intelligence and ability to infer. Read your client. That's part of, all these go hand in hand, but this one is the ability to read your client and know where they're coming from. If when you're in with a client and you guys, you can tell you're not really watching their body language. Sometimes salespeople are just kind of on autopilot, and they go in, they make a pitch, and then they're just like, hey, okay, what do you think? Well, if they haven't read the client throughout the whole presentation, they're not going to pick up on some of these buying signals. They're not going to pick up on some of these objections that they're later going to get. So if you're watching them, you're getting some nods, you're getting some eyebrows raised, like you don't know exactly what they're talking about. You have to be able to stop and just say, I understand that maybe I've said something that maybe you don't understand. Is there some more clarification that I can give you? I mean, you have to be able to do that. And it takes a lot of communicating effectively, which is the next one. You have to be able to communicate effectively, persuasively, and concisely. Advertisers pick up on all of our signals whenever we're in front of them, and you just have to be able to make them feel as comfortable as you possibly can and adjust your tone. And again, like I said before, if you start to see some maybe disagreements and maybe misunderstanding or just not understanding what you're saying, then you address that at that time. The next one is emotional stability and regulation. And really what I think about this is you have to stay calm. If you're in front of a client and this is already an established client, and they call you up and they say, hey, Charity, your news department just did a story on my business that wasn't so good. That's happened to me several times over the course of my 20 years in the industry, and there's nothing that we can do about it. I'll never forget when I was in newspaper in sales, Ramey, the dealership here, was one of my largest advertisers. It was my main income. And we had done a story on Mr. Ramey when he was still alive. It was a not so great story about him, but that's where news and sales are a little bit different, and there's a different part of the business with those two. And you have to be able to know that as the news business, and on the news side, they have an obligation to let the public know what's going on in the area. And salespeople, we're trying to help businesses grow, so that's the last thing we need. But you have to be able to communicate that with your accounts and make sure that they kind of see that, and sometimes it doesn't always end so well. I think they pulled for me like 3 or 4 months. And you can't just go out and make advertising up like that. So you have to be calm and still go out there and keep that relationship, because it will come back, because advertising works and they need you if that's what you're doing in sales. 7th is the patience. Patience is a core quality of salespeople. I just recently had 2 salespeople, ironically, they had been called on two separate businesses, obviously, for several years, and they'd never even done any advertising with them. And after a couple of years, they were like, oh my gosh, I can't even believe it. It was almost too good to be true. They didn't think that they were going to get it, and they didn't want to count it until they actually saw the order come through. But they'd been working on them for a long time, and sometimes it might take months, and again, sometimes it might take years, but you just have to have patience and knowing that you are going to help benefit this client. And you always have to, again, put yourself in their shoes and understand where they're coming from. A lot of times, I wasn't really planning on saying this, but I think it's a good opportunity to say, a lot of times when a new business opens, we kind of stay back a little bit. We give them our business card, but we know that they've got a lot more things right now to worry about than to start advertising. Even though, honestly, as salespeople, we think, I don't understand why they don't put in their business plan to allot certain money to advertising. But businesses don't, especially small businesses. They're really just wanting to start making some money, start seeing the benefit of the fruits of their labor. So advertising sometimes isn't first and foremost, and we have to be patient with that and understanding. And I think we really do a good job of that at WVVA. The 8th one is the problem-solving skills. A lot of times, again, I said a minute ago that your advertisers don't know anything about marketing. They don't know about advertising because they don't do it, and that's what we're here for. And you have to be able to help them solve problems that they may have. They may call you up and have a new product that they don't know how to get out there to people, or they may have an issue with a competitor. And we really try to pride ourselves to be not only an advertising sales rep to them, but a marketing specialist for them. We have a lot of salespeople that place buys for all other medias for their advertiser. I mean, that's pretty good because they trust us. And that's awesome when we can say that we can do that. But you have to be able to solve their problems for them to even give you the opportunity. The 9th is self-awareness. And really, this is just when being aware of oneself and one's impact on the client is critical. You have to know your place. You have to know what you're doing with this client, and really just kind of encompassing all these other factors. And then the last one is the high emotional intelligence. This is what defines a good salespeople, and being able to understand, predict, based on your knowledge of your client's feelings. It's pivotal for success. You have to be able to read them. It's, again, kind of encompasses all of these qualities, again, in what a successful salesperson would be. Coming up, I've got some, we have to think, these are great, but you also have to be good at creative. And that is a huge part of, I told you, our training with Jim Doyle and Associates. They're really big on the creative. And this has changed a lot over the years since I've been in sales. Used to, even 14 years ago when I first started at WVVA, people looked at their advertising differently. They were like, oh, just put this in there. Well, they've become a lot more particular because they know that people have so many distractions anymore. They have a lot less time, and when they're sitting there watching TV, you have to get their attention. So you can't just laundry list every single thing that you do. There's a saying that a rising tide lifts all ships. So if you are telling them something that you know is really beneficial and really a good selling point for your business, they're going to come in, and then you're going to be able to sell them all the other stuff. So you just have to pick that one thing, and that's what we really tell them. The thing that I like about this creative is it is a nursing home, which is not typically the best category that people want to think about until you need it. But I have always loved this commercial. My sales rep did a really good job on it because she doesn't make it like a nursing home spot, and I'll let you see.
This is how senior living is shifting. I'm time to schedule a tour. Dogwood Crossing, where home and heart meet.
Not your typical nursing home ad if you've seen any. And so it's a really good spot, and it's worked really well for them. Another one is an example of when a client just added a new part to their business. So this is a little bit different. It's got some humor in it, but it's also hopefully memorable for him.
Introducing the new UPS store inside Four Seasons Pharmacy in Princeton, home of the Pack and Ship Guarantee. Let them pack your valuables and they guarantee they'll arrive at their destination intact. They're so confident in their packing service, they brought in pro wrestler Johnny Youngblood to put it to the ultimate task. Trust the UPS store inside Four Seasons Pharmacy to get it there safely. Ship your purchase from the Willow Gift Gallery and receive a 10% discount on pack and ship services at the UPS store.
Yep, so kind of different. And then the next one is not something that we don't encounter a whole lot. This is just talking about the remodel of their business, and we had to get creative with it, so it just wasn't saying, hey, be patient with us while we're remodeling, but you'll see. Let the women do it, huh?
We aren't leaving. We're updating our Bluefield branch. Please be patient as we significantly invest in you and in our community.
So that was really effective too, and that only ran a couple months. So, and this is a good example. A lot of times, if we're able to use testimonials in a commercial, that's what we really recommend for an advertiser, because if you know yourself that if you have a friend that tells you that something's worked for them, you're going to be more apt to go buy it, or even go, in this case, go to that doctor's office. So this one has the use of testimonials.
At Bluestone, it's more of a family environment. When you go in, you're not seeing a stranger. When you see the same provider, it's sort of like you're seeing a family member. They know about you, and they know how to treat you a little quicker.
Bluestone Health Association has 5 different locations to be seen. We have same-day appointments available. We have sliding scale fee schedules. Most insurances are accepted. Our mission here at Bluestone Health Association is to provide excellent health care for the entire family. So when you think Bluestone Health Association, imagine great health care.
And we did produce all of these. I think there's also a misconception sometimes amongst people that you have to go with an advertising agency or go get pay these huge amounts in production. People say, well, I don't want my baby in the spot, or I don't want my dog in the spot, or whatever. And we do what the client wants. Obviously, we advise them, but that typically, if you see a silly commercial on TV, it's because that advertiser wants that, and that's their choice, and that's their right. We obviously advise them on things if we think it's going to be too silly. But we do a great job with the creative as well. One thing that I wanted to talk a little bit about was my goal as a sales manager, because I'm not out and about every single day, and I face challenges myself with the salespeople, as I know they face challenges too. But keeping A's engaged, enabled, and energized, and that's harder and harder anymore because there's so many distractions again. I mean, I compete on a daily basis with Facebook, with whatever other social media that the salespeople are involved in. Emails are distractions for salespeople because we have been so accustomed to hear a ding and you're automatically looking. I mean, you could be right in the middle of something and you just start to look at whatever that is. And it is killing us. And so one of the things that is a challenge for me is to try to make things fun. I went to a boot camp at the end of January. It's a sales manager's boot camp, and it's through Jim Doyle and Associates, I've already spoken about. And they do it every couple years, and it's a great opportunity to be able to learn from them and to hear, and also get myself in a different place and learn new ideas of how to motivate the salespeople. But there was a common theme there. We had 3 keynote speakers, and each day all of them were saying the same thing, was to make it more fun, to make it more fun. Workplaces are missing that, and you guys will find that out. It becomes a challenge because you kind of get into the everyday routine of what you're doing, and once you feel like you've learned all that you can learn with that job, which you should never be in that place, but always challenge yourself. But I try to make our workplace fun. We do a lot of different things. We have a sales retreat. We have it typically in January. We had that. We went to Hammer and Stain over in Princeton. We did that together. One year we did one of those, now I can't even think of what it's called. It's not like a murder mystery, but it's where you have to solve and get yourself out of it. There's a place in, yeah, the escape room, thank you. In Princeton, we did that one year. We went bowling one year. And then consistently each year what we do is when somebody's celebrating a birthday, we will all bring something, whatever it is that they like to eat. It could be breakfast food. We had somebody that likes pizza. It's early in the morning, so you kind of got to keep that in mind, but we do whatever it is that they want. I always start all my sales meetings out with music. I learned that from Jim Doyle. You kind of try to change the tone. Monday mornings, as you guys know, are tough. They're tough to get going because you've been off all weekend long, and I need to be pumped up myself, so I try to do that and try to do everything that I can, because as you had asked, or you mentioned, Dr. Bascom, at the beginning, there's challenges that you face. I mean, last year at WVVA, I can honestly say that it was the hardest year in my career. We had, each year when you have good years and you have bad years economically. The previous year we'd had a good year. Last year you're fighting against yourself, so you have to be even better. And we were faced with some huge challenges that I had never been faced with before. I lost one of my salespeople who had been with the TV station for 19 years. He was killed on a motorcycle. So it was a very challenging year, and I had to not only keep myself upbeat and positive, but I also had to keep the salespeople upbeat and positive. And that's hard because when you're going out and seeing people, they can read you just like you try to read them. And if you're down in the dumps, if you're negative Nelly, then it's going to be hard for you to sell. And there were times last year when I think it was very challenging for all of my salespeople because they all loved him. And it was a huge challenge for all of us. We also had our news director. He was new to our area, but he had been with us a couple years, and he was battling cancer, and he eventually passed away in the fall. So we just had a lot of challenges, but that's life. I mean, you guys all face that every day, but when you get close to people, it becomes even more challenge. It was more challenging than I thought it would be in the workplace, honestly, so it kind of caught us all off guard. But that's something that you have to keep in mind when you're in the business. No matter what you're doing out there, whether you're in sales or any career that you have, you're always going to have challenges. I mentioned that I went to that boot camp in January, and there was a couple of things that they brought up that really made me think about what I'm doing and things that's simple, and I've already brought it up a little bit, but there's so many distractions. I gave myself a personal and professional challenge, and I also challenged my salespeople. Less technology. Oh man, what I got going on here, sorry. But less technology. If your life might not look like this yet, but I can look at my life and see that. I mean, my kids are already 5 and 9, and if I'm constantly on my phone when I'm around them or doing stuff, I'm going to miss out on something. This might be what your life looks like, and I go out, I see young kids, I see people in restaurants, people sitting around, supposed to be hanging out with each other, and this is what we're all doing. And the funny thing is we had a really young keynote speaker at that boot camp, and I was really surprised and inspired by her, actually, because she said that in her business that she has, she allows no one to text her anything, pretty much. She says, you need to pick up the phone, you need to call me if you have an issue. She said, if you need to ask me where something is, text me that. That's quick, I can do that, I'm not worried about that. But call me and tell me what your issue is, don't text me. And we're ruining the relationship building process, and it's killing us. when all text messaging started, I was still at the newspaper, and I would tell them, do not text me. Do not text me. Now, honestly, there's people now that I'd rather just text because you can never get off the phone with them if you get on the phone. But I would advise each of you to take a challenge yourself. Think about this, because it's really ruining the way we are communicating with people. And I worry for my kids and how it's going to be for them. And I've told them, honestly, when they were younger, it was just really easy to put a cell phone in their face when we were at a restaurant so they didn't scream and embarrass me and get us kicked out of the restaurant. But now they're getting bigger, and I've told them, look, we're not doing this anymore. I want to make sure that you know how to look people in the eye and talk to them when they're talking to you. And so that's a big thing. One of the presenters said, you must be present to win. And that is so true. If you're not in the moment, if you're not listening to people, if you're not reacting to them, if you're not understanding what they're saying and building that relationship, you're never going to win with that person. So you have to be present to win, and I really like that. If my salespeople were here, they would tell you that I like quotes. So I was just going to share just a few with you guys. The first one is, opportunity is missed by most people because it is dressed in overalls. I don't know why that's changing on me, sorry. Because it's dressed in overalls and looks like work. And that's something that Thomas Edison had said. A lot of people don't like to get their hands dirty and get out there. But I'm here to tell you that it just doesn't fall in your lap. You have to work hard to get exactly what you need and to be successful. The next one, you've already kind of got a glimpse of. It says there's no elevator to success, you have to take the stairs. It's the same thing as the other one was saying. You have to work hard for what you're going to do. Unless your family comes from money, you're going to have to work hard to make money, and it's not easy. And there's challenges. There's going to be things that happen in your life as you get older that are going to challenge you, and you have to understand and be able to do what I'm saying here. Don't leave your best self at home, and don't leave your best self at work. One of the speakers also said that, and I really liked that because I thought, that's really pretty much telling you to just be your best everywhere you can be. But also, when you have those challenges when you're in your personal life, you don't take them to work. And then when you have challenges at your work, you don't take them home to your family. So don't leave your best self at home, and don't leave your best self at work. And I'm kind of coming to a close, but I wanted to make sure that you all knew about an opportunity that we have with our company. It's called our Quinternship. We're owned by Quincy Media, so they kind of pawned off on that name. Quintern is instead of intern. But WVVA has had close to 15 internships from Bluefield College students. So you've probably been aware of that. You've probably heard of it. And that's just since the inception in 2012. So if you're interested in doing something, a lot of them have been in news. A lot of them have been with our internet, our digital side of things. We've had people in our promotions department people that wanted to do that. So I would definitely tell your friends that if they're interested in something like that, because it is paid. There's not a lot of paid internships around here. So, and it's a lot of hands-on. There's a lot of requirements that our company has us do to make sure these students are getting something from it. So it's a really good program. But really, that's all I have. I wanted to leave time for questions and make sure that you guys, when you do something every day, there's going to be things that you leave out that maybe was the obvious. So I just want to make sure I haven't left anything out.
What are you wondering about?
I have a question.
Okay.
Typically, how long does it take for you all to develop a campaign or an ad for your companies?
Well, good question. Again, the one thing that I told you was when we go out and we meet a client for the first time, we do what we call a timeout call. And that's where we do the diagnosis and we make recommendations to them. We'll go back a couple days from then, make the presentation. If they agree, we can get something done, I would say no more than 2 weeks. Obviously, that's going to vary different times of the year with our production department because we have to get with their schedule and make sure that they're good to go out to shoot that for that client. But it's a pretty quick turnaround time for the most part. And it kind of depends on the advertiser. Sometimes they might delay us with, I don't know, maybe it's hard for them to sit down and be able to put a commercial together, because we do need some input. We offer a lot of ideas. We also, with Jim Doyle and Associates, there's an email that we can send, and it's called Help Me at Jim Doyle. And we'll say, hey, I met with an HVAC company today, and they really want to focus on such and such, and do you have any other HVAC companies that you're working with across the country that's doing something similar? And they'll send us creative ideas. So it's really good. Very quick turnaround time, I would think. One of the issues we're running into, you probably heard Dr. Bascom and I talking about a little bit. I told her yesterday when she called me, is the challenge with this coronavirus. I mean, it's really affecting everything. We have put off we do tours throughout the year. We'll bring in anywhere from young preschoolers all the way up to college students that will come in. They'll watch our newscast, and we've kind of put those on hold as you guys are screening visitors that come on campus now. Yeah. It's just kind of one of those things that I've never seen it in my 43 years. So
You'll be fine if it's, smoker.
Yeah.
Smoking really does impact your immune system, doesn't it? So
Yeah, well, it's a respiratory virus.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which is why it's affecting more older people rather than young people. Yeah. I have a friend who's the director of nursing at one of the local nursing homes, and she said that they're just going to all different measures to make sure they're screening people when they come in. They're limiting visitors. They're also limiting some of their people that are in assisted living that can come and go as they please, really. They're telling them not to go to their doctor's appointments, and if you go there, they're taking your temperature if you said that you felt bad, and so it's and asking you a series of questions. So it's just a different time. I was in my small group the other night at my church, and I always hear the word media, and I'm like, because I'm categorized in that media. I know they're probably talking about national media, but one of our production manager was getting gas yesterday at Sam's, and he had a WVVA logo on. He got attacked by a woman. Pretty much, not like physically, but verbally attacked because of our coverage on the coronavirus. And what people just need to understand is it's not always fear, it is facts too, and we're just doing what we're supposed to do. This is what we were made for, was to inform the public and make sure that they know about everything. And we're not trying to scare people, we're just trying to tell people everything that's going on. And I realize that hearing list after list after list of things that's being canceled that have never been canceled before creates fear in itself. So we're just really trying to put out the facts and make sure that people around here are informed, because that's our jobs.
Absolutely.
So hopefully people will have sympathy on that and realize that. He was a better person than me and he canceled his transaction and just left. So.
And was able to just leave.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he hadn't started getting his gas yet. So. Yeah. Does anybody have any other questions? Is anybody interested in sales? I don't think anybody, honestly, and I'll say this, and I'm not taking away from salespeople, I don't think anybody says they're going to go be a salesperson. I mean, I honestly don't think they do. And I certainly didn't go to college to be in sales. I went to college to be in advertising and to help people, and that's exactly what we do. I've said before that sometimes salespeople get a bad rap and people think that they're untrustworthy, and that's not the case. I mean, even car salespeople, I have very good friends that are car salesmen, and it's simply not true. I mean, we're just eager trying to do what we need to do to help people's businesses grow. Some people are more aggressive than others. I have a lot of different personalities on my sales team myself, so that's just something with sales. But I will tell you that at the TV station, at least, and within a lot of the industry, they are straight commissioned, so you can make good money. Sometimes you might have bad months, but you've got to plan for that accordingly. And but you can make good money. You can make anywhere in this market from probably 40 being the lowest all the way up to $100,000. So and I do have people on my sales team that do that. And it's just, again, working hard. You can't just sit back and expect the business to come to you. Those days are over. That used to happen a lot in newspaper. People would say, hey, I want to buy an ad for Sunday. Okay, let me go. They called us order takers when I was at the newspaper. All the other media did. And that's changed for them as well. I mean, you don't just have people calling you up and saying, I want to advertise. So.
How do you feel about a client who wants to put their children in the ad?
I think that if it serves the purpose, I do think that those can be very effective because they're memorable. A lot of times we've had people that say, I don't want my children in a spot when we've went and talked to them because they've seen children in other people's spots. And we just have to think and make sure that there's a purpose. You have to make sure that they're understood. We've had to do some coaching with some children because you can't understand them very well. But it can be memorable, so it serves a purpose if it's effective. And basically, if we were to sit here and review some commercials, and I'd say, is that a good ad or bad ad? The question is did it work?
That's right.
And so if it's a bad ad in our minds, if we think, gosh, that's terrible, I would never do that. But if it worked for the client, then it's a good ad.
Like the loud car sales
Yep.
ads.
I was just thinking about that. You know, they're memorable. People know. I mean, I could recite the Bill Cole Auto Mall phone number because of Deal Man in your face all the time saying it. So I guess I would consider that to be effective. Maybe sometimes annoying, but it was effective.
You know who I kind of look forward to seeing is the guy that does the furniture outlet, mattress and furniture.
Oh man! And do you know I have that on here, and I thought that was something. It was. He says, "Oh, sheep." He's laying on some bedding. Yeah, he is funny, and he is a fun client to have.
Yeah, and he'll in the middle of his little spiel, he'll go, bang bang, meow meow.
I know. I started to show that to you guys, and I thought it's funny that you said that, and I just picked some other ones instead. But yeah,
But those are good.
Yeah.
Those are good
Yeah.
ads.
Yep.
And like you said, the nursing home, they don't call them nursing homes anymore, though, do they? The retirement home or whatever.
Yeah.
That was really clever and beautiful.
It was. It made me feel happy, and I don't like nursing homes myself because of, you know, family experiences that we've had to deal with my grandmother. So it was just,
It's like,
yeah.
oh, it doesn't have to be.
Right.
Yes, it was uplifting.
Mhm.
And the sweet music with the beautiful images.
Yep.
It's really, really wonderful.
Yep. I thought so too.
You probably don't have interns working with your sales staff.
It's a possibility.
Oh, really?
Yep, we offer it for any department. We've never had one, just because I think it is a little bit challenging probably for somebody, but we would definitely be open to it if anybody would ever be interested in that.
All right. Someone who is really people-oriented, go through the list
Yep.
that you gave, that has a creative spark, is really interested in helping people, can take a few no's before the yes, you know.
Exactly.
Because sometimes it's just perseverance.
Yeah, we can't.
Gentle perseverance.
Yeah, we can't make it about us because it's not personal. And, you know, we're all human. We take it personal if somebody tells us no, 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 no. I mean, sometimes you just need to take a step back and go to a client, a long-standing client that you know likes you, and just go sit down and visit with them, you know, and just take a break. If you're getting 5 no's in one day, then you just need to go find somebody else that's going to make you happy. You know what that's going to be. You might need to listen to something, listen to certain music, listen to a podcast, whatever, because that's the biggest challenge, I think, with salespeople is just staying to where you don't get in that rut and being unhappy, because there's a lot of no's, but there's also a lot of reward with that. I mean, when you hear from the retirement home and how good they're doing with that commercial, I mean, that makes you feel good that you know that you've helped their business. I was just with a client last week in Beckley. with one of my salespeople up there, and we were just in there talking about his upcoming year and thanking him for his business. And I said, well, thank you so much for your partnership. We appreciate you. And he goes, hey, you guys have helped me build my practice. And to hear stuff like that, I mean, you're thinking, you know, we take that for granted. We really have. I mean, we've helped him make money, and that's what you pride yourself on, and that's where your satisfaction comes from. Yep.
Very cool.
Yep.
Well, you are an inspiration. You
Oh, well, thank
truly
you.
are. You're such a lovely person, and you have such a heart for this. And, you know, it's good to have that kind of, to be able to see that. Because all of our students are working with clients to develop an ad campaign. And I really want you to think about the attitude